Welcome to the single most important episode of A Scotch and a Beer with Officer Dan that there probably will ever be. There would be no Officer Dan without this video. Not this video in particular, but the video I'm going to be talking about. So if you enjoyed Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2, this is going to be a deep dive into everything that went into filming it, making it happen. Please share it with your buddies. If anybody that you know enjoyed Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2, send them this video. It'll give them some pretty good insights as to what went down behind the scenes with your dude. In the last 4 episodes, I went over how nutty 2011 was for me in every way, shape, and form. From filming with Keep Drifting Fun to taking over events where I almost ran them into the ground and immediately put myself $6,000 in debt, to running 2 series of Pro-Am, both Top Drift and Vegas Drift during that same time period, all whilst holding down a more than full-time job running and managing social media support for all of T-Mobile. Now, little did I know that 2011 would get even more crazy post-season, as my new persona would be birthed by fire, Officer Dan. This is the story of not only how I became involved with Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2, but everything leading up to, including, and post-filming of Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 2. But first, in celebration of this momentous occasion in my life, a Scotch and a beer. So let's start with the beer while it's still cold. This one is the Trader Joe's Audacitor Abbey Style Blonde Ale, 7.5% alcohol by volume. She's a potent little one. It's made proudly in Quebec using the same time-honored techniques as traditional monotastic. Monotastic, is that even a word? This Abbey-style blonde perfectly captures the rich malt, subtle hopped accents, and warm spice of a classic Belgian ale with the signature champagne-like effervescence and aromatic notes of ripe fruit and honey. The Trader Joe's Audacitor is superbly balanced and delicious with a quiet, palate-warming finish. Let's see if I can actually open this without it destroying the world. Wow, that was pretty good. Didn't even spill any. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and pour myself some head because that's what I'm really good at. I even poured this one super slow. Like I have an 1/8 inch of beer. Again, gonna let that sit for a little bit. Goddamn helicopter. I'd like to introduce to you the oldest Scotch in my collection, the Glenfodry 29 year. The Glenfodry single malt Scotch whiskey has been distilled and matured in the renowned Speyside whiskey region of Scotland in traditional American oak casks and has lain undisturbed for a minimum of 29 years prior to a secondary maturation in casks that have previously held premium port. Bottled at a higher strength and without chill filtering or the addition of caramel, our malt master has ensured that you can enjoy the full range of aromas and the full depth of flavors this exceptional single malt Scotch whiskey has to offer. Lamgießen. I don't even know if that's how you say that, but it says it on the bottle. I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy this one straight up, no ice. I had a few drops of water in there. It smells like alcoholic apple juice. Oh my God. It is a complex punch in the face. This one has a little bit more alcohol than most scotches normally have, especially for this age. It is extremely smooth, but it does have a bite to it. You can taste light notes of peat, lots of different fruits. Like it's very sweet at the beginning and then it mellows out towards the end of the sip. You can always kind of tell with great Scotch the way it sticks to a glass when you do this. There's the residue line. That is a real treat. I'm so happy to be able to have this. It was on sale. I had some extra Christmas money laying around and that's how this happened. Pretty sure it's close to a $300 bottle, but I ended up paying like 70 bucks for it total out of pocket, and I will take that. So again, this is celebration for becoming Officer Dan. For this first part, I'm going to be a real stickler on dates because I kind of want you guys to understand how quickly all of this came to be and how quickly Jim Guthrie made things happen. So let's rewind in 2011. It's the end of my season in Pro-Am. I'd finished all of my events. I now literally had nothing to do. The car was still working great. Didn't actually even have to really work on it. Cool, I'm pumped. I was supposed to travel with Jim and the Car Crafters crew out to Irwindale for the very, very last round of Formula D. Instead, I had to be a responsible adult and work. Now, in between Formula D Vegas and Formula D Irwindale, Jim had been in talks with the producers and the director of Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 1, and they decided it's high time for a sequel. I didn't know it at this point, but it was high time for a sequel. Slowly but surely filling this beer up. Maybe by the end of the video, I'll have a full beer. Now, in between the very end of August and October when Irwindale was, Jim had already set the wheels in motion to turn his FD-RX-7 into a police car, because that was going to be the theme for this video. So he had already had it painted, he already had the new graphics on it, he was installing light bars and lights everywhere, and this thing was looking insane. And in a very, very small amount of time, Jim Guthrie had created one of the coolest looking, coolest sounding police cars I think I've ever seen or heard on this planet. I was in Car Crafters one day and it was like, this thing used to be yellow. What happened? Why is this even going on? And that's when Jim filled me in on the fact that they were filming another video. He was like, yeah, they asked me to put my RX-7 into police car mode and I'm gonna chase some motorcycles uphill, and I don't know what the video is gonna be about, but I'm gonna do it. He also said they're gonna start filming right after Irwindale. So in less than a month, he took the car from looking like this to looking like this. Insane transformation. Holy shit, I thought. This thing is gonna break the goddamn internet. So now that the car was finished, Jim Guthrie and crew packed up the rig, packed up the new car, and headed off to Irwindale. It's now around October 8th. That was the weekend of Irwindale. And Jim had gone through practice all day on Thursday, absolutely fine. The car looked gorgeous. Larry Chen got this epic shot of it, which I already used previous, but I'm gonna show it again because it was such an epic shot. I guess I'll just give this a try now. That is a tasty brew. Very, very fresh, has hints of bananas and other fruits. That is a damn fine ale. And I carried about my days at work, business as usual. Now, I didn't get to see much of Jim's practice. I didn't get to see any of qualifying because, of course, the live stream wasn't working. Weird. So I didn't get to see anything that had transpired for that weekend in person. I only learned about it after the fact that Monday. Rewinding to that, what actually happened during Formula D Irwindale. Jim Guthrie lined up to run his first qualifying run, put one in the books, everything was looking fine, everything was going fine. Jim Guthrie lines up for his second and final qualifying run for the weekend. Jim blasts down the straight, he enters and is riding the bank just fine. Something happens, the car snaps to understeer and front end collision into the wall of Irwindale.
Non with a score of 58.2. Non with a 58.2 as Jim Guthrie enters the track. Jim Guthrie, the VA powered FD-RX-7. Whoa! Jim Guthrie taking it hard into the wall with his VA-powered FD-RX-7. Make sure he's okay.
And as you can see, it didn't look like the wreck was that bad in the footage. Turns out it would be one of the worst wrecks in Formula D history. Now keep in mind that this wreck was a much lower speed version of the crash that actually killed Dale Earnhardt. It was the same motion where Dale had gone in at 200 miles an hour into the wall and Jim had gone in at around 55 or 60 miles an hour into the wall. And it did damage. The wreck had broken vertebrae in Jim's neck, had broken collarbones, he had lost teeth, and had to be cut out of his roll cage and air flighted to the nearest hospital. And through all this, it also caused a 3.5-hour delay getting Jim out of the car and safely to the hospital because there was neck damage. And unfortunately, it is through accidents like these that better and more stringent safety regulations are implemented into any kind of motorsports. So by 2013, Formula D had implemented that every driver in Formula D needed to have Hans devices, which was new. So that was basically in case another front end collision like that happened again, it would keep the drivers from breaking their necks, which is absolutely beautiful. The Hans devices do block you from turning your head all the way, but it's totally worth it in case you do get into a front end collision. By 2015, you would also have to have winged seats for the side-to-side movement of your head. So kudos to Formula D for actually implementing new safety rules to keep the drivers driving. Unfortunate for Jim, he had to be the catalyst for this to happen. So Jim spent that Saturday evening and that Sunday in the hospital recovering, and I didn't know any of this had happened until that next Monday, when Jim called me from his freaking hospital bed. Cheers to you, Jim. You are the trooper of all troopers. He also explained that the car was absolutely destroyed. The motor had tried to come through the firewall, the frame was destroyed, everything on that car was basically useless at this point. The motor even got destroyed smashing into the wall, so there was no chance that that car was going to be in the video that Icon wanted to shoot. So again, back to Jim's phone call from the hospital bed. Jim calls me up and tells me how serious the accident was, how he's probably going to be in the hospital for the next week and he won't be able to drive in that video. The next words out of his mouth are again why Jim is the truest form of a car enthusiast and an even better human being. Even after destroying his neck, his teeth, his car, and his pride, and said, "Dan, do you want to take my place filming the Icon video in Washington about a week and a half from now? I already have another car in paint getting prepped for this video as we speak, so don't worry about that." I said, of course the answer is yes, 1,000 times over. I'd be stoked to do that. I'd be an idiot not to. He said, yeah, the car's gonna be an 03 Mustang. It's a Cobra. It's in paint, like I said, right now. It's gonna have extended lower control arms, some angle mods. We're gonna put a racing seat in it. We're gonna gut the whole thing. We're gonna put a roll bar in. We're going to up the horsepower a little bit with a smaller pulley on the supercharger, and went on and on and on about this Mustang that literally was a stock car the day before. He says, we're gonna try to get this thing done by Friday so you can go test it Saturday so you can leave on Monday. And I'm like, holy crap, that's a week. It took me how long to do so many cars of my own and they still didn't get finished on time ever. How are they gonna pull this off getting it done in a freaking week? I'm speechless at this point and I squeak out, man, I really hope you're okay. I'm sorry that all this happened. I appreciate the opportunity. You're the man. Now hurry up and heal so we can drive together some more. That very day, I used the rest of my remaining vacation that I'd saved up, and I took that very next week and a half off of work. Man, this is a heady sumbitch. Never have I seen a car come together as quickly as this one did. I went over to Car Crafters the very next day. On Tuesday, it was already out of paint. It already had the light bars on, wired and working. They were putting on all the graphics that Icon had resent since they were already on the RX-7. Now at this point, I'd had no previous experience driving a Mustang. I'd never even sat in a Mustang before. I'd never been interested in a Mustang. So I was kind of worried about how it would be drifting. The only other Mustang that I'd ever seen drifting at this point had been Von Gittin Jr.'s in Formula D, and that thing is barely a Mustang as it is. Now Friday rolls around and the car's done. It's got angle mods, it's got extended lower control arms, it's gutted, it has a hydro e-brake, it's got everything that Jim said it was going to be in less than 5 days of work. Insane. I guess that's what happens when you actually have resources to allocate to said vehicle. That Saturday, we'd slapped Jim's last set of Falcon RT615s on the Mustang and headed out to the track to do a little bit of practice to see if everything worked and to see if I could actually make the car do what I needed to do. Now on a side note, other than driving that brief period in Vegas Drift where I drove Jim's RX-7 and doing a few donuts on the skid pad, this would be my first actual time getting real seat time in a V8 car. After a couple of turns and a few laps, it started to feel really, really good. And it was insane having so much low-end torque compared to what the big supercharger car had. Like, I could e-brake forever, be in whatever gear I wanted to be in, smash the gas, and it'd light the tires up. That was a new feeling for me coming from having driven turbo cars my whole life. The e-brake worked great, the angle was great, the car felt dialed, blasted through the only set of tires that I had rather quickly, and we loaded the car back up and headed back to Car Crafters. Now we also decided it'd be a really good idea to bring my Pro-Am car A so I could learn whatever we were trying to do first, since I had literally just one set of tires of seat time in the Mustang, and B, just in case anything happened to the Mustang, we would have a backup car to film with. That Monday rolled around and we took off for Oregon in the Death Star with both cars in tow. At this point, other than being told I was going to drive in a video, I literally had no idea what to expect on this shoot, what I was going to have to do, who I was going to have to become. I just said yes, and sometimes that's all you need to do. Sometimes opportunities in life come along where all you have to do is say yes. And a lot of times that doesn't work out. You have life, you have a schedule, you have a family, you have a job. There's so many other things to make you say no. But a few opportunities that you get to say yes, you should probably take those. Now, luckily, I had been looking pretty haggard. My hair was a little bit longer. I had a crap ton of facial hair that I'd been growing out for like 6 months, which still wasn't that much. And there were rumors that I may have to shave that into a mustache. They weren't sure yet, but it was on the books as a maybe. As we were cruising up to Oregon, we stopped in Salt Lake City. I actually got to have lunch with a very, very long time friend of mine, Cassie. She and I were neighbors back when I was really, really young and lived in Saudi Arabia. That's a whole different story, and I probably won't ever get to it. Who knows? Maybe I will. Anyway, we stopped by, we had dinner with her. She's a crazy girl, it was awesome, and we slept in a Walmart parking lot that night in the Death Star and continued on our journey to Oregon in the morning. Now, we'd end up pulling into Grass Valley, Oregon really, really late at night. Parked the rig somewhere, we walk into the hotel. There's a few of the guys from Icon in the lobby that I recognized from the Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 1 video. Gave them some high fives, some hugs, and we said our good nights, because we had been driving for 2 days at this point and we were tired as hell. Now we had a 5 a.m. call time, and I didn't even know what a call time was at this point, but we had to be somewhere at 5 a.m., meaning we had to get up at 4 a.m. The sun wasn't even up yet. We get to the track, it's still dark, we unload the cars, we're ready as crew, and people are starting to roll in for the 5 a.m. call. Nick and Ernie roll up. It's the first time I'd actually seen them since they filmed Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 1, so it'd been just under a year. Saw Matt Sanders, we all greet, we hug again, high fives, good to see everybody, rad to be involved in this project. So it was good times already. Now, I didn't know it at this point, but the track that we would have arrived at that morning would be Oregon Motorsports Park. And of course I couldn't see any of it because it was dark. As the sun came up, my heart kind of skipped a few beats as I got to see the glory that was this racing facility. I had never seen anything like this place before. There were so many blind corners and elevation changes and drop-offs and hills, and I literally could not. And this was just from standing in the pit area looking down upon the track. I was just in awe of how awesome this place was. I was just super excited and chomping at the bit to get out on the track in whatever car. I didn't even care at this point. I would have ran around the damn track for all I cared. Now, they weren't going to be filming anything with me until later on that afternoon, and they were setting up a bunch of shots outside the track with the motorcycles. So I basically had that entire track to myself for like 2 hours. I jumped in the S13, I did a ton of laps, just driving around it just to get some feels and then actually drifting, and it was face melting how awesome this place is. If you haven't drifted there, you should. I know they run drift events out there now. If you're anywhere in that area within like 12 hours, you should definitely go there. The place is amazing. Once I got the hang of the track, I actually ended up giving the track owner a ride along, and he was like, "This is the first time I've ever had drifting on this track." And I was like, "Well, I'm honored to pop that cherry." He was like, "This is pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. It's totally different than anything I've ever done out here." And I do have to say, the section leading up to and including what is called the half pipe there was my absolute favorite part of that entire track. You kind of come down this hill, down a really steep section, right at the very, very end into a left-hander, you manji the straight, and then you can enter as hard as you want kind of into this uphill section. And that uphill section is called the half pipe for a reason, because it goes up and then it goes back down and then it goes up again and then back down and over a hill. Now you could enter so hard into this uphill section that you would kind of start to black out from the G-forces, and that felt so freaking cool. My second favorite part about blasting around this track was right after the half pipe and you kind of go up over that hill, there is a huge fourth gear drop off into a tight right-hander that you got to do, and you could almost unweight the car and you get that crazy feeling in your stomach like you were falling, and it was fantastic. Like I said, this is the funnest track that I had ever driven up until this point. I love Horse Thief Mile for its technicality, but as an overall fun factor, Oregon Motorsports Park blows it out of the water. Cheers to you for being such a rad track. Now, about this point, I had been having way too much fun and it was time to actually get down to business. Nick and Ernie needed to go out onto the track and be filmed by Matt Sanders and the Icon crew. So I retired to watching from some of the various spotter stands, and watching Nick drift in Motorcycle vs. Car Drift Battle 1 was nutty. Watching Nick and Ernie drift in tandem on this racetrack was body blowing. It wasn't even just mind blowing, it was everything blowing. I had never seen anything like this. Those guys are legitimately insane. They filmed a ton of epic shots, and I'm just over here like, I hope I'm good enough to actually be involved in this project. Like, these dudes are on a different level. Like, I don't understand how they can be so good. In a car, you have a roll cage and seat belts and all this stuff, so you have a margin of error. On a motorcycle, when you're drifting, you literally have to be 100% on it every single time you do something. There is no room for error. Needless to say, they filmed a ton of epic shots and we broke for lunch. At lunchtime, we were talking and they were talking about how much fun they were having, and I was talking about how much fun I was having, and it was just a good time all around. After lunch, I was told I needed to don the police uniform. To do some of the plot stuff that was involved with the B-roll side of things. Now, this would be my first time ever having to actually act in front of a camera. I donned the boots, the shirt, the pants, and the helmet. And this would also be my first time not only acting, but doing precision driving as well. Turns out I was pretty horrible at both of them. All I had to do was stop at a mark, step out of the vehicle. This took me like 8 freaking tries to get right. They had the camera set up kind of on the ground, and I would either blow past it or stop in front of it. It is way harder than you can actually understand once the pressure's on and there's cameras there, and it's just like you forget everything about everything. I would say hashtag rookie would be an understatement. So after like the 10th try, I finally stop where I'm supposed to, and I step out of the vehicle triumphantly. Sick. Shot acquired. The next shot would include me walking up to the chain link fence that the guys had supposedly broken into, picking up the chain in disgust, and dropping it back down. Turns out I couldn't do that right either. Because even that relatively simple shot would take me like 6 tries to get right. He was like, your body language is wrong, your walk is wrong, how you picked up the chain is wrong, how you dropped the chain is wrong. And I'm like, I don't understand anything that you're telling me. This is how I would do it. I would walk over there, I'd pick up the chain, and I would drop it. And he was like, no, you need to be more enthusiastic with your chain pickup, and you need to be more enthusiastic with the grab and the drop. And I'm like, man, maybe I'm not cut out for this acting crap. Being in front of the camera is super, super weird when it's your first time. You not only forget what to do with your hands, but you forget what to do with your entire body. Every motion that you make transfers into the camera as an emotion of some kind. And in order to know how to do that, you have to know how to act. And at this point, I had never taken an acting class in my life. I'd only acted the fool up until this point. Get a little bit of a B-roll of me on the track, just kind of solo mission, not chasing anybody, just to have in case they needed it. So we went through an entire set of tires, drifting the Mustang around the track, and they ended up using this shop. And I think this whole section of the video was just me kind of retracing these guys' steps. So I go to the track, I see the chain, they broke in, I'm pissed that they broke in, I go through the track to make sure that they're not there, and probably to have a little bit of a good time, and don't find them. Now, after an entire day of shooting from the crack of dawn until the very, very wee hours of twilight, we filmed that entire day. And we only had the track for one day, so we had to get every single shot that we needed that day. Now, after a full day of shooting, we ended up taking a bunch of glory shots of both the car and the bikes on a straightaway during magic hour, and they came out fan-freaking-tastic. Since we only had the track for the day, I believe they got all the shots that they needed, and luckily we did. Nothing broke, everything went fine, and we headed off to our next location. This location would be across the river and into Washington, just barely. I still had no idea where we were or where we were going at this point, but we ended up in this really small town. We actually dropped the rig off at the bottom of the location that we were supposed to be at, but we couldn't see anything, of course, because it was nighttime, and we headed back to the hotel with the rest of the crew from Icon. It was about a 30-minute drive. We head into town, we have dinner, and then we crashed the F out because it had been one hell of a long day. Now, this video is going to be a two-part series because I have so much to talk about. So I'm going to break this down into our first day of filming and then the remaining 3 at a different location. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. It's probably already past 30 minutes, and the next section is going to be even longer. So that one may be a very special hashtag 45-minute goddamn video. So cheers to you for tuning in, and please watch the next one. The next one gets pretty nutty. This is Officer Dan with a Scotch and a beer, and I'll catch you on the flip side for episode 13. Help! No!